Hey everybody, Dave from Windance here, talking wingfoil boards for your advanced rider or intermediate rider. If you learned on 120 and 140 and you're moving down, now we're going to talk about boards that are 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 liters, the smaller stuff, and what you're going to look for on those. So the reason, first of all, to go smaller is so the board is less weight and you can whip it around in the air while you're coming down a wave face or in your turns or whatever you're working on. And that's the reason to go smaller. Smaller for most people is going to be 75 liters. If you're a 180 pound person, that's going to be kind of your minimum volume before it actually sinks so much that you have to do a different type of start. For me, it's about 85 liters, but when I'm in saltwater, I run a 75. So this is a 75, this is a 57, this is a 65, this is an 80. They're all pretty small. They get down to like 11 pounds when you get to the nice light ones. Let's look at some features that you get when you go to these smaller boards. You'll notice they all have inserts. I haven't really found the need to have inserts on your bigger volume or beginner board like the 120s. Don't need it, but when you get down to this size, you might want it. Different brands put their inserts on in different locations. Some of them just allow you to have inline foot straps. Some of them allow you to do a V formation at the front. This is, for example, let's look carefully at this one. This is from F1. So you've got two rear positions in line, and then up here, you've only got the V option, right? So you can have one or two. I just run one on my good side, and when I am flipping my feet around, it's probably only because I'm going upwind and I don't need a foot strap on that side. North runs something similar, but they do have another set of inserts right here, allowing you to run a front inline foot strap versus a V, so that's handy. Freedom Foil out of California, they've got their inserts in line, but a distance apart, so you're gonna be way over here. It's their choice. It maybe makes their board carve a little differently. And then here's the Slingshot Wing Raider, and they've got all the options on theirs. V front or in line. You'll notice all these boards have gone with what I call a corduroy finish, this grooved parallel traction action, and it feels so good on your feet, especially compared to the old diamond plate pattern, which after an hour or two your feet get soft. This groovy stuff is totally groovy. One of the four of these boards, this North Seek, has a hump in the middle. That hump is kind of handy. When you're riding, you're moving your feet around and it's like an index spot. You don't have to look down. You move your foot and you're like, I know exactly where my foot is because I can feel that hump. All four of them have got a kick pad. I'm not that advanced, but if you're riding strapless and you're doing off the lip, you might have your back foot right back against the kick pad to give you a little extra leverage. All the boards have vent plugs. Some of them, it's a Gore-Tex vent plug, so you don't have to touch it. It automatically breathes, and in other words, if you take it onto a hot beach or on an airplane, it will expand. Other ones, you have to unscrew the vent plug and take it out when you're putting it on an airplane. Let's look at the bottom of all these boards. Okay, just before we flip them, I want to do one more point. I talked about indexing your back foot. Some of them have given you a marker for your back foot. Like this little black square is on all the F1 boards, and then with one glance, I can tell where my back foot is fore and aft. North's got this fade color. Freedom's got this V, kind of lets you see where your foot is. I don't see anything on the Slingshot, so if I bought that one, I would just put a Sharpie line right across there, so with a glance, I can look down and see where my back foot is. Now let's take a look at the bottoms. Okay, so we're just gonna scan across and look at all these different bottom shapes. This is really where the shaper earns his money. Of all these boards, the F1 is kind of the widest and thinnest, and so it's the easiest to crawl up on. I find it very stable this way. Some of the boards have wanted to reduce wetted surface, and so they've put these chamfers or these edges like this, narrowing up the wetted area. Probably the most of those is the Wing Raider. It's quite narrow on the wetted surface, so what happens then is when you touch down, it doesn't stick as much. It might release earlier, and also by bringing this in, when you're beveled over and there's a wave approaching, you're less likely to catch that rail on the side of the wave and might make you lurch a little bit. So there's a lot to talk about bottom shape. The other thing that you can see on all of them, when you look down the length like that, there's some sort of tunnel or concave. This is a traditional one that you'll see when we look down. You can see on that north board, there's 2 concaves. Again, that's all about it smashes down in the water, how easily does it release. And along that line of how easy does it release is the nose rocker right here, the amount of flip in the tip. That's why it's so thin here. So when it comes in at an angle, it's most likely to bounce off the water surface, but if it does pierce it, it's a thin nose and it won't throw you out the front door. Okay, so that's shape. And then basic other features is the grab handle. Of course, they've all got grab handles. I gotta say, they feel pretty much identical. You can hardly tell one from the other. So let's talk about the rear area of the board. Again, this board has cutaways to reduce wetted surface. This one stays wide and flat. These 2 guys reduced wetted surface by having scoop-aways. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the tracks. Probably the most innovative of all of them is the Slingshot. Notice how the tracks exit right out of the back of the scoop-away. So all you have to do is loosen your 4 nuts in your top plate, and the whole thing slides out without removing all the screws. That's pretty good. This is a traditional setup that we have here on the Freedom board. So you'll drop your 4 nuts in, spread them out, and then line them up with your top plate. North has gone with one called the drop box. So they've got 4 holes, so you can leave your nuts on your bolts and just put the whole plate in and then slide it into position. And F1 has the single hole style. If you buy an F1 board for $7, you can buy these F1 little logoed square rubber pieces, which I have on mine. So I drop my track nuts in, and then I push these squares in, and I'll never lose the nuts, because that's the worst if you lose that hardware. So when I take my foil off my board, I take the screw and put it into the nut, and it's not going to fall out because the hole's full. So that's a little bit of information on high wind foil board. So you can see we got a good selection, and it's all in stock. We're not having a problem right now, but you want to order early, give us a call. Everything's arriving or has arrived, and it's all showing on our website. Or you can give us a call or order online, whatever you want. Thanks for listening. This is Dave at Windance.